चुकाने वाला।
आधे नाम से आ जाते वो कोई बुलाने वाला। दिख जाते भगवान कोई हो मोल चुकाने वाला।
कोई मोल चुकाने वाला। कोई चंदना जैसे उड़द खिला के देख ले। कोई शबरी झूठे बेर खिला के देख ले।
आ जाते भगवान कोई बुला के देख ले।
वीर नाम अति मीठा है कोई गा के देख ले।
वीर नाम अति मीठा है कोई गा के देख ले।
आ जाते भगवान कोई बुला के देख ले। वीर नाम अति मीठा है। हृदय दी जो चांदनों ने नैना दी जो जोत। हृदय दी जो चांदनों ने नैना दी जो जोत। इतनी बाता नहीं देव तो रह जाऊं लाठोर। म्हारा गुरुदेव गुणवंता। इतनी बाता पूरी करो तो छोड़ूं सारी ममता।
हमारा गुरुदेव गुणवंता। इतनी बातें पूरी करो तो छोड़ो सारी ममता।
नौ तत्वरो ज्ञान दीजो समकित साची।
नौ तत्वरो ज्ञान दीजो समकित साची।
अंधारो अज्ञान रो हर जो समझण पाची। म्हारा गुरुदेव गुणवंता। इतनी बाता पूरी करो तो छोड़ूं सारी ममता।
हमारा गुरुदेव गुणवंता। इतनी बातें पूरी करो तो छोड़ो सारी ममता।
भरम भरम में करम कमाया धर्म न जान्यो काई।
भरम भरम में करम कमाया धर्म न जान्यो काई।
शर्म शर्म में उमर गवाई हाथ न आयो काई। म्हारा गुरुदेव गुणवंता। इतनी बाता पूरी करो तो छोड़ूं सारी ममता।
हमारा गुरुदेव गुणवंता। इतनी बातें पूरी करो तो छोड़ो सारी ममता।
कृपा रे बरखा बरसा दो कर दो आप समान।
कृपा रे बरखा बरसा दो कर दो आप समान।
धीरज शांति भक्ति बढ़ाओ दीजो आत्म ज्ञान। म्हारा गुरुदेव गुणवंता। इतनी बाता पूरी करो तो छोड़ूं सारी ममता। म्हारा गुरुदेव गुणवंता। इतनी बाता पूरी करो तो छोड़ूं सारी ममता। Jai Jinendra, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Yes, great.
Yes, we can hear you.
Welcome. Good evening and Jai Jinendra. Tonight we begin with our SCVP adult class. And as normally we do on a Friday, we begin with a Nauka mantra recited by our very talented children from the Sri Chanda Vidyapith School. Today we have the amazing Urmi Shah, aged 8, from our Praveshika class, who's going to recite the Nauka mantra and the Uvasagaram. Over to you, Urmi.
Thank you. So, Nepada Jayinand.
Jai Jinendra.
Om Namo Arihantanam. Om Namo Setanam. Om Namo Ayariyanam. Om Namo Uvajayanam. Namo Loye Sabasahunam. Eso Panchanamo Karo. Sava Pavapanasano. Mangalancha Savesim. Paramam Havai Mangalam. Paramam Havai Mangalam. Vasakaharam Pasam. Pasam Vandami Kamangamukam. Visahara Visaninasam. Mangalakala Avasam. Visahara Pulingamantam. Kante dare Josayamanu Tasakaharo Kamari Tuta Jara Janti Wasamam Chito Dure Mantu Tojapana movie Pofolo Hoi Naratiriya Suvijiva Pavantina Dukatokacham Tuwasamate Late Chintamani kapapaya vapahiye pavanti aviganam jivaya ramaram tanam iyasanto mahayasa pati barane baranahiya ena tadeva jijapohim pave pave pasajina chanda pave pave pasajina chanda Jai Pashwanath, Jai Pashwanath, Jai Jai Shri Pashwanath.
Wow. My goodness, Urmi, that was sung so beautifully, so much bhav, and you are indeed really talented young lady. I wish I was 8 years old again. Perhaps I can be as wonderful as you are. My God, you know. Sorry?
Abad.
Okay. But well done, superb job. And you are really a great inspiration to all the other children in Sri Chandna Vidyapith School. And it shows that with so much dedication, not only from yourself, but also from your parents, one can learn so much so quickly and so beautifully. So well done. The pronunciation, the clarity, everything was 100%. And I'm going to ask every single person watching to unmute and give Urmi Shah a big round of applause. Thank you, Urmi.
Thank you.
Right. Good evening if you just joined us. Some of you who listened last Friday to Dr. Vinod Bhai Kapashi, he took you through Acharya Hemchandra ji's life. It was indeed a fantastic lecture last Friday. So if any of you have missed it, it is available on YouTube, so you can catch up. So today, the same theme, the same topic is going to be talked about with Rajeev Shah. Rajeev is a long-standing scholar, teacher, a dear friend of Sri Channa Vidyapith. In fact, the whole family is a dear friend of Sri Channa Vidyapith. And we are indeed privileged and honored to have him this evening. And all the family, friends who are watching, I want to just to say that Rajeev is such a talented guy. He knows so much about Jainism that we could, listen to him every single day. And he's indeed an encyclopedia of knowledge. And this evening, Rajeev Bhai is going to talk about one of the very famous sutras that Acharya Hemchandra ji wrote. It's a 32-verse sutra, and I believe it's called the Saklarhat Sutra. So I would like to hand over to Rajeev Bhai and take us through this evening on this wonderful presentation. Over to you, Rajeev.
Thank you very much, Varsha, for the kind introduction. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So as Varsha mentioned, we'll continue with Dr. Vinodbhai Kapasi spoke about Acharya Hemchandra last week. And one of the most famous sutras which has been composed by Acharya Hemchandra is Saklarhat Sutra. Now, if you see here, Acharya Hemchandra was actually called Kalikal Sarvagnya Shri Hemchandra Acharya. What do you mean by Kalikal? As you know, in the Jain cosmography, there is a time cycle, the upward cycle and the downward cycle. And right now, we are in the fifth era, or kind of the dark ages. So Kalikal. So Kali means black. So we are in the kind of the dark ages. And in these dark ages, if someone who has got a lot of knowledge, almost infinite knowledge, is Acharya Hemchandra. Even if you look at it in today's day and age, you do find some child prodigies, some supernatural people, talented people. And so in that way, Acharya Hemchandra was a very, very talented personality. He was an Acharya and a great scholar of Sanskrit, and he has composed many, many scriptures and texts, Jain texts. So we'll be talking about one of the sutras which he has composed. Now, what I mentioned that a good part of Acharya Hemchandra's life was actually in Patan. And when I visited there in 2016, there is actually a Sri Hemchandra Jain Gnan Mandir. And there's actually a vault, a secure vault, which actually has got many sort of old antique, relics, which some of them which are of the time of Acharya Hemchandra. Here we can see a Jain text, 650-year-old Jain text, preserved so immaculately in this museum. And again, in that same location, here you see a shrine dedicated to Acharya Hemchandra. And if you look at the photo on the right, it must have been a vivid imagination of the artist who must have portrayed that this is how Acharya Hemchandra looked like. And some of the other relics which we found in the museum is some of these kind of manuscripts which you see on the screen here. On the top, it's shown that the Sadhu Maharajis are actually teaching some of their disciples and pupils Sanskrit. As you can see what's written here. Nichena Bhagma Chitrama Upadhyay Vidyarthiyone Sanskrit Vyakaran Bhanavi Raya Che. Sanskrit was such an important element at that time that many of the young sadhus had to learn the Sanskrit language. In the bottom one, you can actually see, as Dr. Vinodbhai Kapasi mentioned last week, that Acharya Hemchandra had composed so many texts, and some of them were masterpieces. And on one occasion, one of the books was actually placed on top of an elephant, and the whole procession, Vargodo Jaiche. So the husband or the bride would actually come on a horse. On this occasion, it's not a person who is getting the prominence, but it's a book which is getting the prominence. And what a great mammoth book which was written by Acharya Hemchandra and put on a procession and going towards the Lord's Derasar. Now, Saklarhat Sutra was composed on the insistence of the famous King Kumarpal. It is also called Chatur Vishati Jin Namaskar. Chatur Vishati. So what does that mean? Chatur means 4 and Vish means 20. So it's a eulogy on the 24 Tirthankars. And in a similar way, Logas Cheche, that's also called Chatur Vishati Sutra, because choice Bhagwan, we are doing praise to our 24 Tirthankars. But the difference is that this is actually called Bruhat Chaityamandan. So Bruhat means large, big. Apni Shanti bole che ema pan ave che nani Shanti ne Bruhat Shanti, moti Shanti. So in a similar way, that when we recite Saklarhat Sutra as Chaityamandan, this is called a Bruhat Chaityamandan. It's like it's a big composition. And it's recited during the Chaityamandans of Pakshik. Apne tere Chaudas hoy, Chomasi Chaudas hoy, ke Samvatsari hoy. That's a time when this sutra is recited. Generally, when you go to Derasar, then we just recite the small Chaityamandan. Maybe the Chaityamandan could be for Santinath Bhagwan, Mahavir Swami, Parsanath Bhagwan. It's a small Chaityamandan. But on this one, it's got all the 24 Tirthankars are being praised. So that's why it's called a Bruhat Chaityamandan. There are 33 verses in the sutra, and they describe the various qualities and capabilities of the arhats. And we will actually go through each one of them over the next 3 sessions. Now, here actually you can see a visualization of King Kumarpal bowing down to Acharya Hemchandra. And can you imagine that this is going almost 900 years ago from where we are right now? And you can actually see over here that Patanma, Acharya Hemchandra, he actually passed away in 1172. One of the lasting legacies left behind by King Kumarpal and Acharya Hemchandra was this Tirth in Taranga Tirth. I actually visited there in 23rd February 20, and there you can see a description on the wall outside, and it says that King Kumarpal actually accepted the Jain religion in around, this is 1204, which is a Vikram Samvat. So you have to subtract 57 years to bring it into the our calendar, Gregorian calendar. And Acharya Hemchandra requested Kumarpal or coerced him that why don't you build a nice temple? And this temple was actually established in 1165. And then it says that the Pratima je Ajitnath Bhagwani Murti che, it's 101 inches tall, 8.5 feet tall. But during the 14th century, because of the Muslim invasion, Alauddin Khilji destroyed this temple and Khandit Thegyu. Thereafter, in 1436, again, the Jain Sangh says, let's now renovate this temple and bring it back to its original glory. And it's one of the master tirths of our Jain religion. If you actually go inside the temple, you will actually see this picture there. And Acharya Sri Hemchandra Jinath Darshan Nathe Avela Sri Kumarpal Raja. So just amazing to see that even inside the temple, you will see this picture of King Kumarpal and Acharya Hemchandra. The carvings outside are just exquisite. And inside the temple, there is a majestic idol of an elephant. Now, as you know, Ajitnath Bhagwan is our second Tirthankar. Nenuja Lanchanche emblem is the elephant. So there is this beautiful emblem, and on sitting, perhaps, I don't know if it's King Kumarpal, and facing Lord Ajitnath Bhagwan. Now, whilst I was doing my research, it was kind of amazing to note that Oxford University was established in 1168 and almost around the same time as Taranga Tirth. Both these institutions are almost 900 years old. Now, let's look at the Saklarhat Sutra. It's got 25 verses composed by Acharya Hemchandra. And these 25 verses were actually part of the Mangla Charan. So let's see what we mean by Mangla Charan. Acharya Hemchandra composed this 4-volume Sri Shashti Shalaka Purush Charitra. So it's got the life history of 63 great personalities. And as you know, for example, Apre Hoy, when we want to start any new venture, we would actually seek blessings of our elders. Apna mother, father, pase jasu. If you start any new business, a new house, you want to go for your exams, anything new you start, you'd always go for blessings. You'd go to your parents, to your grandparents, and if you're lucky enough, you would even go to your gurus. Apna guru na apna ashirwad lene jaye. In a similar way, what do sadhus and sadhvis do? So sadhus and sadhvis say that before they start any new task, they actually say, why don't I give my veneration to the Lord? And they are hoping and praying that may I be able to complete this task without any obstacles, without any problems. There could be natural calamities which could hinder their work or hinder their whatever task they've taken. And therefore, they also compose a Manglacharan. So the Manglacharan is like a preface before they start their work. So Acharya Hemchandra, before he started this mammoth task of compiling this Shashti Shalaka Purush book, as a forward, as a beginning, he actually composed the Saklarhat Sutra, the 25 verses of the Saklarhat Sutra. And then when later Acharyas realized that how beautifully it was composed and its importance, they decided to take it as a Chaityamandan. Now, as we described earlier, that it's got 33 verses. So there were some additional verses which were added later on. So some people believe that the 27th verse was later added on by Haribhadra Suri. Now let's look at the format of the sutra. With 33 verses, the first two verses are just an introduction to the Aryan Bhagwans. Then it follows by 24 verses describing each of the Tirthankars, some qualities, and eulogizing each of the 24 Tirthankars. And then finally, what happens is, then we're going to be looking at the couple of verses which are just eulogizing Bhagwan Mahavir. And then the final verse is going to be describing some important tirths in the Jain religion. Abu, Astapat, Girnar, Samet, Sikar, Satrunjay, Tiratasar, Panche, Tiratutam Tam, Siddhigaya, Tenekuru Pranam. He is actually giving a description of some of the important tirths in Amaje Bhagwani Murti Oche, and he's eulogizing them. Now, Dr. Vinod Bhai's Kapas's research showed that he's saying that the first 26 virtues were composed by Acharya Hemchandra. Then the next 4 were by Virjin Stotra, and it's in the Parishishta Parva book. The other 4 verses have been added in. And the other 3 verses were from another 5 verses which are composed by Acharya Hemchandra. So as you can see, it's a compilation of quite a few different texts. And this is actually where the research comes in, because sometimes there could be differences of opinion. Some people could say this has come from this Acharya, and when some people do some research, look at the style of the composition, then one can make a different inference as to who might have actually done it. Because you're going so back far in time, it's exactly difficult to pinpoint the exact who actually composed it and when and by whom. Now, let me describe briefly what's going to be the format of my talk as we're going to go along the next 33 verses. Each verse has got 2 lines. And so as we go through all the 24 Tirthankars, it will be 2 lines for one Tirthankar, then going another 2 lines for the next Tirthankar. So this is one verse, then followed by the second verse. And what we will be doing is understanding each of the Sanskrit words which have been composed in this sutra. Now, when we look at the words, and we look at the English translation, it might be a bit confusing. The order of words in the verses might be a little bit different to the exact English translation. So we will try to understand the essence of these verses. Now, Saklarhat Sutra is a poem. And in poems, there is a concept which is called anvay, which means that you have to condense the information. You do not have a liberty of using so many words to describe whatever you want to suggest. So for example, whenever children are going to universities and they have to do a personal statement, it says you have to write your personal statement in 500 words or 700 words or 1,000 words. So there's a limitation of how much you can do. In the same way, poems are restricted by the number of words they need to use. And sometimes they actually use something which is called anvay, inference. So for example, where there is smoke, there is fire. So if I just say to you fire, you have to infer that there must have been a smoke for the fire to appear. So I don't need to use so many words to say smoke ekle fire mane dekhanu. Just by using the word fire, I already know that there must have been some smoke. And so therefore I can reduce the number of words I can use in a poem. So we are also going to appreciate the beauty of the Sanskrit composition. What a beautiful ancient language. And it's actually supposed to be known as the language of the gods. One of the other motivation for doing this talk is to make you appreciate that our ancient heritage and inspire you to learn Gujarati, Hindi, and Sanskrit. For example, when I was doing my preparing for this talk here, just a little bit of knowledge of Gujarati makes it so much easier to understand these verses here. And if we learn the languages ourselves, then we will be actually able to inspire our children to learn them. Sometimes it actually pains me that our children learn Spanish, French, German. Why not, and even Latin to that matter, and say, oh, Latin is going to be important if you're going to do law. Why not learn Sanskrit? Sanskrit is such a brilliant language, and you can get so much essence by learning it. So almost all our prayers are in Sanskrit, Prakrit, or different forms of Sanskrit. One of the other kind of inspiration I would like to say is, like, for example, when you do Pratikaman, there has been a very strong move towards doing it in English, I think, which is a very good thing. Because in the past, when you used to do Pratikaman, we never used to understand what's going on. And it used to be a boring exercise. So it is very good to do it in English, but not at the expense of losing some of our rich prayers. So I certainly believe that we need to change with time, but time should not change our rich heritage. And as we go through each of these 24 verses, we'll do a Bhav Yatra, because I'm 24 Tirthankars ne apne stuti karwana che. We are looking at the verses, and there are so many tirths, apna Jain tirths, and some of them of our different Tirthankars. So we will do some Bhav Yatra as we go along our journey. Now, before we start, we know that this sutra has been composed in Sanskrit. So just let's look at some of the basic format of English. In English, we have got what we call SVO, subject, verb, object. Rajeev eats mango. So Rajeev is subject, eats is an action, so it's a verb, and mango is an object. But how would we say that in Gujarati? Rajeev keri khai che. So Rajeev is the subject, keri is now the object. So the object comes second, right? And khai che is last. The verb comes last. If I were to say the same thing in English, Rajeev, mango, eat, that sounds very odd. But you see how automatically, because we are bilingual, we can easily switch from one to the other. English, we will actually use the right tense, subject, verb, object, but in Sanskrit or Gujarati or Hindi, the whole, it changes. And therefore, we have to, when we are looking at the translation of each of these verses, we have to keep this at the back of the mind. When we look at exact translation, we'll say, oh, the order seems a bit odd, but it's because of the format is different. Now, let me tell you, if you really wanted to learn Sanskrit, someone told me that even 12 years is not enough. And so therefore, in about 30 seconds, I would like to just give you some basic concepts of Sanskrit, which will make it much more interesting as we go and understand the Jain prayers. Now, what we have in Sanskrit is endings are everything. And what do I mean by that? Let's look at Dev. Dev means angel. Mani Bhadra Dev, Gantakara Mahavir is a Dev. Right? And when we want to say one Dev, it's Devaha. If you want to say many gods, we say Devaha. All what has changed is from Va to Va. Just the ending has changed. And that ending just makes, we can easily understand that if I said Deva, it's one god. And if I said Devaha, then it's many gods. Same thing, if I'm giving offering to one god, or if I'm giving offering to many gods. So if I'm saying, if I'm giving offering to something, so it's Devam. So I gave offerings of some fruits to one god, that's going to become Devam. So just that Ma makes, I know that I've just done it for one god. But if I gave the offerings to many gods, that would become Devana. So as you can see, the endings are everything. And the endings will then make you understand what are we referring to. And then you've got different classes. Is it to one god, by one god, for one god? And depending on which one you're looking at, the endings are going to be slightly different for each one of this kind of matrix. The next important concept in Sanskrit is sandhi, joining things. So for example, like in English, we have got rules, like one mango, but many mangoes. So it's ES. One banana, bananas. It's a single S. And if you got one cherry and many cherries, then it's IES. So you've got rules of how you can make from a singular to a plural and what you have to add at the end. Similarly, in Sanskrit, there are many, many rules for joining words together. So let's just look at some simple example. The first word ends in a. And the next word, second word, begins with a. If I wanted to join both of them together, then that becomes a. or if the first word ends in a, the second word begins in a, then again, when you join both of them together, it becomes a. One other important thing to understand is when we look at the Gujarati alphabet or the Sanskrit alphabet, when you say ka, kha, ga, all of these alphabets have got a at the end. So ka, it's K-A. Like as if you write that in English, it would be K-A, ka, K-H-A. So there's always a sound which comes at the end of any letter you say. Ka, kha, ga, ma, pa, fa. The sound comes at the end. And that's going to be very important for us as we go along to understand the verses, the 33 verses of Saklarhat Sutra. So if you look at another rule of Sandhi is if the first word ends in E and the second word begins with a, then what you have to do is when you combine both the words together, it would change into a ya. And same with u would become va and ra becomes ra. So let's take an example. We often say swagatam, welcome. How is this word formed? Su agatam. And if you look at su, it's sa and u. And you're joining this with agatam. So as we have seen the rule over here, if the first word ends in u, the next word begins with a, I have to replace, if I join them together, I have to replace them with va. So this becomes, I remove the u, that becomes swa, and then because it's a, swagatam. And what a beautiful word. What does that mean? Su means auspicious and agatam means appearance. Aplikan aiva. So when we welcome someone, we are trying to say what an auspicious appearance. So what a beautiful, and you get the essence of this word here. And you can see how the sandhi has been applied here. So let's now look at the first verse of Saklarhat Sutra. Now, as we know that in most of our Jain prayers, the first word is how the prayer is known by. So when you say Logos Sutra, the first word begins with Logos. Namuthunam Sutra. So the first word is Namuthunam. Uvasagaram Sutra. The first word is Uvasagaram. Similarly, because the first word here is Saklarhat, this is known as the Saklarhat Sutra. And in all these verses, what I've done is on the left, I've given you the kind of the Hindi text. The middle one is the Gujarati text. And on the right-hand side is going to be the English translation. So what does the first word say? Saklarhat Pratisthanam Adhisthanam Sivasriya Bhurbuha Swastraishan Marhantyam Pranitatmaye. So now if you look at the first word itself, Saklarhat. Saklarhat itself is now formed with two words. Sakal, Arhat. So and as I said earlier, it's not Sakal, it's not L. Sakala. If you break out even the break up the word sakal, sakala. So it's la, L-A, la. So it ends with a, and then the next word begins with a. So therefore, when you combine these two words together, it becomes a. So there as it is, you can just see Saklarhat, and that becomes Saklarata. Now, આપણે જ્યારે ગજ પ્રતિકોણમાં આપણે બોલીએ છીએ, સકલ સંગને કમાવીએ છીએ. So what does sakal mean? All. And arhat means આપણે Aryan Bhagwans. The next word is Pratisthanam. So what does Pratisthanam means? In every place, everywhere. આપણે કહીએ ને કઈ સ્થાનમાં છે, આપણે કે Hindustan, the location of where the Hindus stay. So stan means location, place. So Pratistan means in every place, everywhere. And what is this trying to say? What does this 170 signify? Now, we know that when in our Bharat Kshetra, there were 24 Tirthankars, about in our Bharat Kshetrama. The Jain philosophy says that in certain periods of time, there are lots of different universes and different locations within the Jain universe. So we could have had 24 Tirthankars here. We could have had some 24 Tirthankars in the Airavat Kshetra, some other Tirthankars in Mahavidya Kshetra. So at any given point in time, the maximum number of Tirthankars could be 170 in the universe. So it's saying that I'm looking at all the Aryat Bhagwans. There could be 170. And the other important thing to look here is that suppose you were to go into Google and saying, I want to do a translation of Sanskrit to English. And if you looked at Pratistan, and then the next word is Madhisthanam. If you type Madhisthanam in Google and saying, convert this from Sanskrit to English, you will not find the word. Because if you look here, Pratisthana, this is na and the ma. That ma belongs to this word here, Pratisthanam. And as we see that ma is not only ma, it's ma and a. So the a part of ma is joined with Dhishthanam. So this is Saklarhat Pratisthanam and then because adhisthanam, the next word is adhisthanam. So we have got pratisthanam means every place, every location, and adhisthanam means abode. The next word is Shiv. What does Shiv mean? Happiness, welfare, and the meaning which is relevant to this text here is liberation, final emancipation. Moksha. And then the next word is Shriya. Shriya means prosperity, Lakshmi. Now, don't you know, how many of you know, I've actually got these letters here, which my grandfather used to send me. And if you remember, letters how were we referring to people? Like, for example, Shri Vradlal Mohanlal Shah. So every person used to be, like right now we call Mr. someone, but in the past it used to be Shri. And what a beautiful way of referring to people and saying, may you be endowed with prosperity, may you be happy. So that's how the Shri was, we used to refer to people. Why? So Shriya means, so this whole line here means Shiva Shriya Adhisthanam, Moksha Lakshminu Nivasthan. The next word here, Bhur Bhuha Swaha. Don't we know that in the Gayatri mantra is case Om Bhur Bhuha Swaha Tatsa Vitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. So as we've said that, so the same three words, Bhur Bhuha Swaha, is actually referred into this stotra here. What does that mean? It means the lower world, the middle world, and the upper world. And as you can, Swa means Swarg. So after Jain universe, we know that the bottom part is the hellish region. This is the middle world where we are staying right now. This is where the angels, Devios stay, and right at the top is the moksha. So Bhur Bhuva Swa means the three worlds. Then the next word it says Tra Ishanam. So this is the one here, Tra Ishanam. Tra means three, and Ishanam means Adhipati, Swami, Prabhu. Apliketame Tran Lokna Nath. You are the Prabhu of the three worlds. The next word is Arhantyam or Arhantyam. This is really the key word in this sutra here. What it's saying is that apna choice Bhagwan che. We've got the 24 Tirthankars and we are going to be reciting, we are going to be eulogizing them. However, if I say Bhagwan Mahavir is full of compassion, that quality is not only relevant for Bhagwan Mahavir, it's relevant for all the Tirthankars. So we are looking at the qualities of the Arihants. So the quality which is applicable to one Arihant is actually applicable to all the Arihants because they're all the same. And an analogy I can give to you is like gold. So when this couple is going, this lady is looking at all these various gold pieces here. Oh, this necklace is nice. Oh, I like this design here. So she's looking at the different the modes of gold. But this gentleman here, he's looking at this gold. He says, well, to me, it doesn't make a difference. I'm just looking at the quality. 99% no gold che, 95% no gold che. What is the price of gold? Athena is 50 pounds a gram. 5 varas jo pehla ne lidu hot, it used to be 25 pounds a gram. So he's looking at the price of gold right now. So he's looking at the qualities of gold, whereas this lady is looking at the specifics of the gold. So here Arhantyam says is, we are going to be looking at the generic qualities of all the Arihant Bhagwans. So if I'm going to be saying, praising Shantinath Bhagwan, and I'm saying, oh, Shantinath Bhagwan, you're full of Shanti, you're full of mercy. That quality is not only just relevant for Shantinath Bhagwan, it's relevant for all the 24 Tirthankars. And the last word here he says, Pranidadmahe. What it means? Pranidhan. What does it mean? Profound religious meditation. So now let's look at how this all gets composed together. I would like to do dhyan, meditation on the qualities of Arihants of this era, who have achieved moksha, liberation, and are the lords of heaven, human and hellish beings. Sometimes it's actually even nice, better to read the Gujarati translation because English translation sometimes loses the essence of these words here. So Gujarati ma શું કહે છે? જે સર્વ અરિહંતોમાં રહેલું છે, જે મોક્ષ લક્ષ્મીનું નિવાસસ્થાન છે, તથા જે પાતાલ એટલે the underworld, મર્ત્યલોક, the middle world, ને સ્વર્ગલોક પર સંપૂર્ણ પ્રભુત્વ ધરાવે છે, તે આરહંત્યનું અરિહંતપણા સ્વરૂપનું અમે ધ્યાન ધરીએ છીએ. Now, one thing before I move to the next verse is to actually look at something quite unusual and peculiar. The letter R in Sanskrit is very unique. It's a very flexible letter. Let's look at this verse here. This small curve is actually Ra. So Saklarhat. So Sakala and that Ra becomes here. So R says, I don't need a special letter for me. You don't need to put R there. I am a very flexible letter and I can go anywhere. Then if you look at the next letter here, this is pa, and this small line here becomes pra. So that becomes pra. And if you look at the other one, shra, so this line here becomes shra, so shriya. Again here, if you look at this curve here, so that's bur bhuvasva, that ra comes in front here. Again, look at another way. Ta. If you look at ta, so for example, ta is here. And if I had to put a slanting line, that becomes a bit confusing. So they've got a line here with two lines going up. So that becomes tra. So swastra ishan. You know, I actually found it quite funny that R is very flexible. My name begins with R, but I don't feel I'm quite comfortable. I'm not very flexible. So, well, you know, there you go. In language, it's a very flexible ra. Now let's look at the next verse. Nama kruti dravya bhavya punata sri jagajanam kshetre kalete sarasmin narata samupasmahe. Now the first four words here are called nikshep. What is nikshep? In Jains, there is actually in the Jain philosophy, it's called points for investigation of truth and its categories. And there are four forms of nikshep: nam, akruti, dravya, and bhav. And you can see all of them have been joined together. Nam, nama, kruti. So you can see nam, then that a is formed with here. So akruti. Then this word is dravya and bhav. So all these four have been joined, it says nikshep. So what does this mean? So we can say, I can call someone by name Mahavir, but Mahavir is just not unique. Someone else can be called Mahavir. Akruti means form. I can see a murti, and that murti could be of Bhagwan Mahavir, but if you just bring a murti in front of me, I cannot know it's Bhagwan Mahavir. I have to then look at the lanchan, emblem suche. Is it lion? Then I can say, yes, this is Bhagwan Mahavir's murti or some other Tirthankani murti. Then dravya means past or future. Past ma koi Bhagwan Mahavir thya tha, ke future ma thawana chahiye. For example, Jains believe that Krishna Maharaj, who Hindus believe in, he's going to become a future Jain Tirthankar. So right now, if I pay my obeisance to Krishna Bhagwan, I'm actually paying obeisance to someone who's going to become a future Tirthankar. So I'm actually giving vanna to him, to Krishna Maharaj. And bhav means present, the present form right now. Atyana koi jo Bhagwan Mahavir hoy, to ke atyana Bhagwan Mahavir che. Now, bhav is also quite important to know. So for example, when a teacher teaches in school, he's a teacher. And then when the teacher comes home and the mother says, Jo beta, teacher ghare aiva. The son's going to be a bit surprised. What do you mean teacher ghare aiva? So when the teacher comes home, he's no longer a teacher, he's a dad. Ke daddy ghare aiva. So as you can see, the same person can have different terminologies, different ways of investigating the truth. જેમ આપણે સાધુ મહારાજ છે, એ લોકોને કે એને ઘણીવાર કે ભિક્ષુ કે ભિક્ષુ. So what does bhikshu mean? Only the time when the Sadhu Maharaj goes for seeking alms, bhik magwa jai che, ત્યારે એને bhikshu કહેવાય. So when you're looking at the essence and the meaning of each of the words, you have to then look at its very particular connotation. Then the next word says punata sri jagat janam. Puna means purifying, cleansing. Jagat means world, and jana means creature, living being or man. Application jiv jantu, janwar. So those are like creatures. Kshetre kaleche sorasmin. Kshetre means location and kal means time. And look at both of them have got a, kshetre and kale. And that a is location, which means in all locations or in all times. So that's what it means by the ending is important. It's not for or it's not at, it's in all times, in all locations. Kshetre kale cha. Cha is very important. What does cha mean? Cha means end. And in English, you would say, I went to the market and bought tomatoes, bananas, and fruits. In Sanskrit, the end comes after all the description. So you would have said, I went to the market and bought tomatoes, bananas, fruits, and. So the cha essentially in English would come in between these two words here. Now, if you look at even Logas Sutra, again, Logas Sojogre Dhammatithere Jine, Ariyantakitesam, Chovisam Pikevali, Usabha Majiyam Cha. Usabha Majiyam Cha. Usab, Rushab, Ajitnath Bhagwan, and then Cha. Cha means end. So that end would come between those two, Rushab and Ajitnath Bhagwan. So as you can see, the Cha always means end, and that end would come between the two. In English, we would have said Kshetre Cha Kale. But in Sanskrit, it's the other way around. Kshetre Kale Cha. Sarva means all locations, all time. Now, as you can see that because this is location, the sarva has got different forms here. And we need to use the same form as location here. So for location, sarva means sarvasmin. So that's why it's called Kshetre Kale Cha Sarvasmin. So it has to form, it be in the same way. You cannot call it sarvam because that's like an object. So this is location, and so therefore I have to use the same ending which matches with this. The next word is arhata samupasmaye. Arhat means Arhat Bhagwan, and samupasmaye means upasna kariye chhe, seva kariye chhe, ke bhajiye chhe. So now what does this all in combined mean? In English it says, we would like to worship those who bless us in all spheres and at all times by Nam, Stapna, Dravya and Bhav. And what does it say in Gujarati? Nam, Stapna, Dravya and Bhav e chare nikshep ethi karine trane lokma ane trane kadma trane jagatma praniyo ne pavitra karnara arihant bhagwantone ame upasna kariye chhe. So after these two introductory verses, we are now going to start looking at each of those 24 Tirthankars. So there'll be 2 lines for each Tirthankar, and we'll go for the next 24 verses, which will be going for each of our 24 Tirthankars. So the first verse, Adimam Prutvinatha, Madimam Nishparigram, Adimam Tirthanatham cha Rushabaswaminam Stumaha. So this is for the Adeshar Bhagwan, the first Tirthankar. Adimam means Ella, first. Adi means first. Prithvi means earth, and Nath means master. આપણે નમુત્તનમમાં આવે છે લોક ન હાણમ, લોકના નાથ છો તમે. You are the leader of the lok, the ત્રણ લોકના નાથ છો. So Nath, so the leader. So Adimam Prithvinatha. Again over here you can see that it's Natham. The next one is Adimam, but because it's joined, so that ma would actually be part of this word here, and then Adimam is the one here. So Adimam Prithvinatha, Madimam Nishparigram. And the next word is Adimam Nishparigraham. So Graha means to acquire. Parigraha means to acquire from all directions. So Pari means from all directions. Let's, for example, Maro Parivar. So all my relations. Pachi Paristiti, circumstances from all angles. Pachi apne Pariksha. So what does Pariksha mean? I'm going to examine you from all angles. So that Pari means all. So Parigraha means I want to acquire from everything. Apne shopping mall ma jaye to kina ke che aaj hoye che ulu joye che aaj shop ma jaye. So I just want to acquire. So Parigraha from everywhere. Nisparigraha means having no property. So having no properties from any sides. Totally abandon everything. The next one is Adimam Tirthanatham cha. Adinam and Tirthanath Tirthankar che. Look at the word cha. You've got 3 things here. Adimam Prithvinatha, Adimam Nishparigraham, and Adimam Tirthanatham cha. So that cha would actually come here. About describing one thing, second thing, and then end, and then this way. Rushabaswaminam Stumaha. And then Stuma એટલે stavan karo chu. Rushabaswaminam hu stavan karo chu. So what's the English translation? We would like to praise Shri Rushabdev Swami, who was the first king, the first sadhu, and the first Tirthankar of this era. And Pela Raja, Pela Sadhu, and Pela Tirthankar, Eva Shri Rushabdev ne ame staviye che. Now let's do some Bhav Yatra. So Adeshar Bhagwan, there are so many tirths for Adeshar Bhagwan. This is Palitana, and as you know, this is one of the holiest sites for all Jains. This is Adeshar Bhagwan at Potters Bar. Abu Majeshe Delvada temples. So some majestic, how they've done all these designs. It's one of the world famous Jain temples. Ema Panje main Bhagwan che, Ema Adeshar Bhagwan che. Now next to Palitana, there is also other smaller hills, Kadamgiri and Hastagiri. And so this is Hastagiri, and Hastagiri mapan Adeshar Bhagwani Choumukhi Pratima che, in all 4 Adeshar Bhagwani Murti che. So this is all these tirths for Adeshar Bhagwan. This is Ranakpur Tirth. Again, Ranakpur Tirth mapan, they have got 4 the main idols che, Adeshar Bhagwani che. And again, it's a phenomenal tirths. And you know, all of you, I would strongly suggest that once when this lockdown is over, have that contemplation. I want to go to India and I want to go and visit some of these great Jain pilgrim places. One other thing about Adeshar Bhagwan, let me give you a slight brief history that Lotana Tirth. This Tirth is in Rajasthan, And when Palitana when the terrace was being constructed many hundreds of years ago, they decided pratima muksu apde. And at that time, the acharyas brought the pratima from this tirth over here and brought it to Palitana. Legend says, through some power of devs and devis, that Murti did not want to be in Palitana, and it returned back to this tirth. And because in Hindi, the word is lot back, lota vija, come back. So this tirth became Lotana. And when I visited this tirth, it really made me wonder, can you imagine ke aaje hun pratima na hun darshan karu chu? If this was in Palitana, millions of peoples will be venerating them. Na aya ketla desolate jungle ma tame paida છો. Hardly anyone visits this place here. And tame sav ekla aya betha છો ne ena darshan karwa lage ke wow, how is fate? At one point you could have been in Palitana with millions of people, and here you are in a very quiet location. The next verse is the second Tirthankar, Ajitnath Bhagwan. Arhantam ajitam vishwa kamlakara bhaskaram amlana kevala adarsa sankranta jagadam stuve. So Arhantam ajitam, that's the first word here. So Arhant Bhagwan, Ajitnath. Ajitnath ekla apne bija Tirthankar ne ke che. Vishwa means world. Kamlakar literally means a lake or a pool where lotuses are abound. So it's like a lake full of lotuses. Kamlakara Bhaskaram. Bhaskara means sunlight. The next word is Amla na kevala darsa. Amala. Apne ki Gujarati ma શું કહે છે for dirty? Melu છે. So Amal means not melu, not dirty. So that means it's pure. So Amala, Kevala. Kevala darsha. So Keval means Keval darshan. But again, can you look at the play of words here? The other word is Keval, and then the other word is Keval Adarsh. Adarsh means mirror. And we'll see that why is this mirror coming into this. Sankranta Jagadam Stuve. Sankrant. So what does Sankrant mean? Pratibimbit, reflection. Jagatam Stuve. So Akha, Jagat means the universe. So what does this mean? Arihan Prabhu. So let's look at this English translation here. We would like to get blessings of Shri Ajitnath Arihant, who is worldly like the rays of the sun that makes the lotus lakes bloom, and the three worlds are reflected in his reflection of Keval Gnan. Now this translation is not quite true, and let's look at the Gujarati one. Jagatna pranyo rupi kamalo na samuhane vikaswa mate surya swarup. Can you imagine what a beautiful poem this is? Okay, look at the lotuses. Ratna, they're all sort of wilted, and when the sun comes, they actually blossom. Okay, Bhagwan tame sun jeva cho. Okay, with you, all of us, we all blossom. Without you, it's all darkness. So it says, Surya Swarup Tatha, Jemna Kevalgnan Rupi Darpanma, ke tamaro Kevalgnan che, you got infinite knowledge. In that mirror, you can see everything as crystal clear. Apne paase mirror che, we can see crystal clear. But Bhagwan nu je Keval Darshan je che, he's saying it's like a mirror. You can see everything of the past, of the present, and of the future, just like a mirror. Apni paase je mirror na apne jamjo, it's crystal clear. And they can see not only of me, but for the entire universe. Every single living, animate and inanimate beings, the Bhagwan na Keval Darshan ma, that knowledge is there. And that's why we call Kapra Bhagwan ne Keval Gnan che, Keval Darshan che. So they've got infinite knowledge of the past, of the present, and of the future, and of all animate and inanimate beings. Eva Bhagwan, Ajitnath Bhagwan ne hu stavo chu. So Ajitnath Bhagwan, again, Potas na Barma, as you know, outside the Derasar, all the 24 Tirthankars ni pratima ho. We looked at Taranga Tirth, Ajitnath Bhagwan no cheche. It's a very famous tirth. What's also very interesting is Palitana ma jape Nautuk ni jatra apne kariye, tya ke Ajitnath Shantinath Bhagwan ni deri che. And as legend has got it, that these two temples here were facing one another, like opposite like this. And what used to happen is if someone used to go and pray to Ajitnath Bhagwan, so back would be facing Shantinath Bhagwan. Now Shantinath Bhagwan ne jo pray karwa jai, then the back would be facing Ajitnath Bhagwan. So je Nandishan Muni tya gaya, he composed apne Ajit Shanti. As he was reciting Ajit Shanti, legend has got it that both these temples then came close to each other. So baju ma avi gaya. So apne Asat na thai. Bhagwan ne apne back, our back is not pointing towards the Bhagwan. So what kind of history and Ajitnath Shanti Ajit Shanti આપણે જે બોલીએ છીએ, that was actually composed in this location here by Nandishan Muni. विश्व भव्य जनाम कुल्या तुल्या जयंतिता देशना समय वाचा श्री संभव जगतपतेह. Vishwa means all, entire universe. Bhavya means to become. Jana means creature. Aram means bagicho. Kulya means a channel for irrigation. And Tulya means equal, analogous, resembling. Tulya is such a nice word. આપણે કહે છે જૂના જમાનામાં જે આપણે the vegetable vendors, the weighing scale, એને કે tulla. So that's kind of tulya, which means I'm measuring. Jayanti, jay pame che. Ta means that. Deshna samaye, which means dharmopadesh deti vakate. Samaya means time. Vacha means speech. Shri means fortune. And Jagat means the entire universe. So what does this verse mean? We bow down to Sri Sambhavnath Bhagwan, whose final pravachan, Dharma Deshna Japrikeche, last lecture before moksha, is as beneficial to the blessed people of the world as fresh water is beneficial to the garden. Can you imagine આપણે દુબઈમાં જાય અત્યારે IPL cricket રમે છે, we see a green grass, but it's not green. There's water channel being irrigated, and therefore we see everything is green. So એને ભગવાને કહે છે કે if it's dry arid desert, પણ જો એક પાણીનું irrigation આવ્યા માંડે, then everything blossoms. Hey Bhagwan, I'm in such dark ages, but with you around, everything will blossom. So can you see how the poem has been composed? They're describing some things of the nature of the universe and then linking them to Bhagwan. Sambhavnath Bhagwan, a very nice tirth is Kumbharya Tirth. This tirth is almost very, very close to Ambaji Tirth. And it is said that Abuma Panso Keche, it's got some very beautiful carvings. This tirth has almost got identical carvings, Kumbharya Tirth. Sambhavnath Bhagwan came Sambhavnath Bhagwan Thiyu. While the Bhagwan was in the mother's womb, the mother dreamt that rice was grown, Sambhut, and second plant took place. So આપણે કહે છે સ્વાહિલીમાં કે શાંબા and આપણે કે ભાત. And so therefore because the mother had a dream of this rice being grown in the fields, that's why આપણે કહે છે એને ભગવાનનું નામ કર્યું Sambhavnath Bhagwan. Anekantam tam bodhi samula asana chandrama tadhyadamandamanandam bhagwan abhinandana. Anekant. No, ekant means one. Anekant means many. So it's multiplicity of viewpoints. Mat means what is your view? Ambodhi, receptacles of water, the ocean. Ullas, samulasan. So ullas means feelings of pleasantness associated with natural beauty. Chandra means moon, or sort of also means glittering, bright, shining. And then it says the dhyadamanda. The dhat means apo, you give. And just look at this word, the dhyadamandam anandam. So the dhyad, what su apeche Bhagwan? Amandam, ati, intense, gano. And su gano su apeche? Anandam. Anandam means joy, sukh. And these three words also rhymes with this Bhagwan, Abhinandan Swami. So what a beautiful poetic composition. That we actually enjoy this play of words and rhyming with Abhinandan Bhagwan. શું કહે છે? દધાત આપો, શું આપે છે? આનંદ આપે છે. કેવો આનંદ આપે છે? પરમ આનંદ. And who is giving this આનંદ? કોણ આપે છે? ભગવાન અભિનંદન. કેવા છે ભગવાન અભિનંદન? અનેકાંતમ મત રૂપી સમુદ્રને ઉલ્લાસિત કરવા માટે ચંદ્ર સ્વરૂપ. And this is such again a very beautiful analogy. We went to the seaside. Have you ever been there on a low tide? You all see seaweeds there. There's no surfers. Everything is, so the sea is way back. When high tide આવે ત્યારે શું થાય છે? We feel enjoy. All the surfers come along. People start doing water sports, and we just enjoy at the beach. And all this is happening because of the moon. The tidals are happening because of the moon. Otherwise, the oceans will be totally dry without the moon. So Bhagwan ne compare કરે છે કે તમારો જે તમે છો the moon જેવા છો. And with that, we can have all these different streams coming in and all these different viewpoints, and you all collect them into the oceans, and that makes it beautiful. So now we look at Abhinandan Swami. Enu je lanchan che monkey. So this is a very nice murti of Abhinandan Swami. This is Samit Shikhar. It was what a coincidence. I'm not sure if this is exactly the footsteps of Abhinandan, but if it is, then what a great coincidence. Luncheon monkeys che, so you can see actually monkeys on the footsteps of Tirthankar Bhagwan. And again, this is Abhinandan Swami at Potter's Bar. Jusetakiri Shanagro Tejitam Drina Kavali, Bhagwana Sumati Swami Tanotto Bimataniva. Juset means Dev. Kirit means emblem, the mukut, the crown. Shanagro. Shan means to sharpen. Agra means the top, the summit, the peak. Utejit means to stimulate, to excite. Anigra, pug. Nak. So here is Dusitagriti Shanagro, Tejitam Dida Nak Khavali, Nakha Khavali. So nak means, so pugna nak, the nail of a finger or a toe. And avali means surpassing, excelling, or outdoing. Kanoto means to extend, to spread. Abhimat means to desire, wish. And va means, most of these have got va. This ending here, va. And va means tamara, yours. Ma means mine, and va means yours. So may all your desires be fulfilled by Sri Sumtinath Bhagwan, whose toenails are shining in the reflection on the crown of the Devas. Devtona mukut rupi, saran upar, jena charanoma, nakoni, panktiyo, gasaine, chamcham ki thailiche, Sumtinath Bhagwan, tamara manomanchit puro. What is interesting here to say is that Dev Deviyo, Maha Indra che, Devlokna, they are actually coming and bowing down at the Tirthankar's feet. Ilokanu je crown je che, ekli badi war iloka bow down kare che, that the crowns are actually becoming shining because they are Bhagwana nakni same ghasai che. The crowns are actually becoming sharpened. So that's how it's kind of describing. So this is again Sumtinath Bhagwanu here. Again, Sumtinath Bhagwanu, let's look at a short story of Sumtinath Bhagwan. A merchant had two wives, and why was he called Sumtinath? And on return, the merchant died. So as you can know that the merchant had only got one son. Now, whoever wife claims that amaro chokro che, then they'll become the son is going to get all the wealth. So the women were quarreling. Biji woman ke amaro chokro che. So now how to resolve this? So they went to the king. And the king looked at both these women and they said both of them look very identical. I can't make out. Looking at the features of the child, I cannot tell whether this child belongs to this woman or that woman. The queen said, don't worry. Women's problem needs to be solved by women. Men should not interfere. So the queen said, so the queen said, Mara petma je child che is a Tirthankar Bhagwan. So when he is born, he will give judgment. So, but the real mother jihati, Kotma ke, please, I can't wait until then. Please give the judgment now. And the mother said, you know what? I don't need to wait until my son is born. I know that this lady here, she's the real mother because she just can't wait. And because the queen thought very well, Mati means mind and Sumati means great mind. So that means Bhagwanu Nam Sumtinath Bhagwan Thiyu. There is another interesting story of Bhaktama Stotra, but I will not actually say it because in the interest of time, we are running short of time. Let me just finish this and then we will continue the following week. Sumtinath Bhagwan, there's a very interesting tirth here, Matar tirth, and legend has got it. Bhagwani Murti underground mati nikdi, they were put it onto a bullock cart. He actually, it was a rainy season and he could not see that the whole area was flooded. And as they were crossing, all what he could see is just sand, and he just carried on. And then after having crossed, then when people looked back, they said, oh wow, this was actually flooded. How could we manage to have crossed this whole area when it was full of floods? And at that time, they said, okay, this is the power in the kind of miraculous, because of the miraculous murti. Okay, so let me just give me 1 second. Okay, so if I just finish off one verse, then actually I'll be on track because there are 33 verses. So let me just finish one verse here. Padma Prabha Prabhodaya Bhasa, Pushnantu Vashriyam, Antaranga Rimatane, Kopa Tupa Divaruna. So Prabhu Keche, oh Prabhu, you're the Lord or Master. Prabha means light or splendor. And Bhasa means brightness. Pushta means you sort of intensify. And Va means yours. Pushnantu Vaha. Shriyam means Lakshmi. Anta ranga rimatane. Anta means inner. Anta rang means color. Can you spot the word Ari? Anta ranga rimatane. So the A and Ri, Ari. And Ari means Arihant Bhagwan. Ari means enemy. So all these Kashais are our enemies. So anta ranga rimatane. And mat means to crush, to crush or to grind. Our enemies ne mare grind karwa che, crush karwa che. Kopa topa divaruna. Kopa means, what does it mean? Kopa means anger, wrath. And kopa એટલે આટોપથી ક્રોધના આવેશથી. Can you imagine someone who is full of anger? He's seething with anger. And Eva means as. And Aruna means red. So let's look at what this is trying to say. This verse is trying to say. અંતરના શત્રુઓને હણવા માટે ક્રોધના આવેશથી જાણ લાલ થઈ ગયા હોય તેવી શ્રી પદ્મપ્રભુ સ્વામીની કાયાની કાંતિ તમારી આત્મા લક્ષ્મી પુષ્ટ કરો. Now પદ્મપ્રભુનું આપણે જે એનું કલર જુઓ, different તીર્થંકર્સ have got different colors. Parshvanath Bhagwan has got green color. So Padmaprabhu Bhagwan's color is red. And this poem is actually saying, can you imagine if I become very angry, I'll actually become red. So, and the poet is trying to say, कि हे भगवान, कि कोई लाल થઈ ગયું હોય, લાલ થઈ ગયું હોય તો body becomes red. So your body has become red, like someone who has become so angry. And શું કહે છે, અંદરના શત્રુને નાશ કરવા માટે. And you are here to destroy all this our inner kashais. તીવ્ર ક્રોધ કરવાથી જેમ લાલ થઈ ગયેલા હોય એવું શ્રી પદ્મ પ્રભુ સ્વામીનું શરીર, your body is like that, red. તમારી કલ્યાણ રૂપી લક્ષ્મીને વધારી મૂકો. So Maudi is very important for Ghantakar and Mahavir. ને મૌડીમાં અહીંયા મૂર્તિ છે ને બાજુમાં દેરાસર છે ને ત્યાં દેરાસરમાં પદ્મપ્રભુ ભગવાનની મૂર્તિ પણ છે ત્યાં in there. And again Palitanama, as you can see here, કે ભગવાન પદ્મ પ્રભુની મૂર્તિ is red in color. And just as you are climbing Palitana mountain, on the right hand side there is another temple dedicated to 24 Tirthankars and Padmavati Mata. So ત્યાં 24 ભગવાન નાવા છે, and you can see ભગવાનના પગલા છે, and give some bit of background information on each Tirthankar here. So sorry, you might have overrun by a few more minutes, but Jai Jinendra for now, and we will continue the next verses the following week. Any questions from the audience? Sorry, I've not been looking at my chat, but if there's any questions, please let me know.
Any questions, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, I have one, Rajeev.
Sure.
Rajeev, you mentioned a little bit about the other languages, like all the European languages and how they've come from Latin. And so is there evidence that Sanskrit also, did Sanskrit come before Latin? And is there any correlation between the two languages?
That I cannot be too sure of, but if you look at the history, many of the words, if someone is an expert in languages, they can say that many of the words have some similarities. So some of the root, because most of these words have got roots. And if you look at some of the roots, there could be some very common roots between Sanskrit and between the, as you would call the Western languages. So there might have been some kind of correlation, but whether and as you can know, even in Germany, Hitler believed that they were the Aryan race, and they believed in a similar way that their heritage may be coming from there. So there could be some, but I'm not an expert to know whether Latin came from Sanskrit or whether at the same time. But one thing I know for sure, that there are quite a few words that could have a lot of correlation between two words, that the word in Sanskrit and the word in Latin could have some very similar roots.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And at the very beginning, you showed the text that was found of Hemchandracharya, his verses. Is that something that was excavated any particular time? And is there a number of them that was excavated and one can see them? Or
Yes.
is it just one particular one that was found and it's been showcased?
No, there are quite a few. And if you know, like even Vinod Bhai Kapashi had mentioned in the past, कि આપણા જૈન લોકોમાં ભંડાર હોય છે, ભંડાર. So our old ancient agams and heritage were composed and then they were stored in these bhandars. And so when I went to the museums, it's not just only one text. There could be many texts, and not only here, but if you went to Koba is another place which has actually got many of these which are preserved. And in fact, we are quite lucky right now that many of these organizations are actually trying to digitize them. so that we can preserve them for the future generations. So when I went to the museum, some of them were actually artifacts at the time of Acharya Hemchandra itself. Some of them could have been later compositions, maybe a few hundred years after them. But it requires scholars and experts to exactly pinpoint which is of which particular period. But for sure, all of them are 500-600 years older than 500-600 years.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
In fact, when I actually went there, they actually saw some coins which were at the time of Acharya Hemchandra and Dhrum Ketata Dhrum. Coins. There's so many coins there, an expert would say that these coins were at the time of 1,000-year-old coins.
Mm-hmm. And is there any painting or a drawing of Hemchandra Acharya anywhere, or is it just one sort of assumes?
I think logic would say that over 1,000 years ago, it would be very difficult to know how anyone would have looked at. Even if you look at the British history, it would be quite surprising to know if someone said this is King George or King Edward VII, to come up with a picture of someone who lived over 1,000 years ago. So either people have got maybe there could be some description and people are then using their imagination to say this is how he might have looked like. But I find it incredibly difficult to believe that someone has got an actual replica to say this is I found this is how it would have looked like.
Mm-hmm.
I think Pramit is asking, are there any Acharya now that have descended from Acharya Hemchandra Acharya? I'm sure they have, because one thing which Jains have is got a very strong record of the lineage of since Bhagwan Mahavir. So Bhagwan Mahavir was there, and then for a few, maybe around 100 years or so, there used to be one Acharya and then another Acharya, and then many factions. So one Acharya would have had 5 disciples, and that 5 disciples many. So if I'm not mistaken, many, they are called gachas. So I'm sure there must be someone who can easily find out that, this is my guru right now, and this guru was this, and you can trace back all the way to Acharya Hemchandra, even all the way back to Acharya to Bhagwan Mahavir.
Wow, gosh. Are there any more questions from the audience? No? Can I do my own quick survey and ask everybody who's watching, how many of you actually know Sanskrit, read, write, or understand Sanskrit? Can you just tell me on your chat, please, so I know? I think it'll be interesting to know, because there seems to be quite a range of age group in this presentation this evening, and I think Rajeev would want to know as well.
I think I can see Vinod Bhai is on unmute, but I think Vinod Bhai is trying to say that he definitely knows Sanskrit.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, Shreni is saying, I'm learning, so have a basic understanding, I think. Basic
Excellent.
knowledge.
I think any of you who do know this language, I'm sure you'll appreciate the beauty of this poem, as you'd agree. Vinod Bhai, I don't know if you would like to unmute yourself and say, would you agree, Vinod Bhai?
I definitely agree. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I definitely agree. Sanskrit is a beautiful language. And one thing I've done in my life, which I'm happy about, is learning Sanskrit when I was in the school. I took some private tuitions and I learned Sanskrit. So I can write, read, understand. When I say I can write, means I cannot compose Sanskrit poetry or anything, but yes, I can understand it well.
Oh, that's wonderful. I can understand little few words here and there, because I can read Gujarati and a little bit of Hindi. But it's from childhood.
The picture you might be interested in seeing, that was also from very old manuscript, Hemchandra Acharya. I don't know how old it is, but it's still, I think, 700-800 or 900-year-old. Yeah. Rajeev might have seen it somewhere in the book somewhere.
That's fantastic.
Yes, of course.
Vinod Bhai, can you take a photograph and send it to us on WhatsApp, please?
Okay, I'll do that. Yeah.
That would be good.
I hope everything is fine. If there's any mistakes or errors, please do let me know, Vinod Bhai. If there's any...
No, you are doing a very fine job. Lovely. You know Sanskrit now. Very good. Yeah. And talking about this Latin and Sanskrit, there are quite a few words which are common in both. I mean, the Dios in Latin, Dev in Sanskrit, that God. So there are quite a few door and other thing, and some of the numbers are also same in Sanskrit and Latin. I can't remember many right now, but there are, yeah.
Wow, wow. Well, when I discovered that there are a few Spanish words as well that are very similar to Gujarati. There is a dialect in Spain which so for example, they say chavi, and I was shocked that we also say chavi for, you know, keys. So I discovered few other words as well alongside. So there definitely is this universal language that we are, you know, we are all connected, aren't we, Vinod Bhai and Rajeev?
Yeah.
And what a lovely presentation, Rajeev. My God, you are definitely a book of knowledge. Very
Yeah, I'm sorry, I
detailed.
apologize to everyone because it's a bit fast. There are 33 verses to go. So
Yeah.
I sometimes I'm a bit, I'm not taking any questions. I'm going a little bit at a faster pace. I do apologize, but yeah, please feel free.
That's okay, Rajeev. Thank you so much for putting in so much effort and time. And I've certainly thoroughly enjoyed tonight's presentation. And we look forward to seeing you next week. And I'm sure people will have time to think a little bit more and maybe research before they come back next Friday with another few questions for you.
Yeah.
And really, thank you so much, Rajeev.
Thank you.
And so I'd like to end tonight's session, and then I'll go on to the announcements that I want to make. But I would like this evening, as a surprise, as I like to do as well, I did last week, I would like the Manglik to be recited by Jasmine Udani this evening. So Jasmine, can you unmute, and can we please have the spotlight on Jasmine? She will recite the Manglik this evening for us. Jasmine, over to you.
Chattari Mangalam, Arihanta Mangalam, Siddha Mangalam.
Sahu.
Start again.
That's okay.
Chattari Mangalam, Arihanta Mangalam, Siddha Mangalam, Sahu Mangalam, Kevali Panato Dhammo Mangalam, Chattari Loguttama, Arihanta Loguttama, Siddha Loguttama, Sahu Loguttama, Kevali Panato Dhammo Loguttamo, Chattari Sharanam Pavajami, Arihante Sharanam Pavajami, Siddhe Sharanam Pavajami, Sahu Sharanam Pavajami, Kevali Parnatam Dhammam Sharanam Pavajami. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Thank you so much, Jasmine, for volunteering at last minute. Thank you so much. So everyone, what a lovely evening we've had. And before you all leave this evening, I have a few announcements to make. Firstly, in Virayathan, India, Daima Acharya Sri Chandaji Maharaj has set up a new initiative. It's called Vyom, which is a virtual learning platform. And she has all the sadhujis participating in various teachings. So for example, if you want to learn Sanskrit, that's possible. If you want to learn Hindi, if you want to learn a particular sutra. So there is a whole timetable which is available on the virayathan.org website, as well as our SCVP website and our SCVP Facebook page for a detailed timetable. So please do have a look, see what interests you, and do take the initiative to join and learn over the next few months. Secondly, I'd like to announce that IOJ are having an Ahimsa Day. Normally every year, the Ahimsa Day or Ahimsa Award is presented at the House of Commons. But this year, the whole Jain community will be able to participate virtually on this Ahimsa Day. I believe that's taking place on Saturday, the 24th of October. If you would like more information, please go to the IOJ website. And thirdly, and most exciting news I have. Just give me 1 second. So, going from war to peace, from sadness to happiness, and from darkness to light, we the SCVP family, the Virayathan family, with the young Jains, will be celebrating Diwali. So I wanted to just light the Divo, and as a calendar in your mind that we are not far away from Diwali, and that you will have a chance to celebrate with us on a very special day. So please note that we will have a whole day of events on Diwali day. So here's all the information I have for you so far, but you will find all the details next week on our website. So the topic of the day will be the light shines on. And the whole day of Diwali, Saturday, 14th of November, will begin in the morning with a Chopra Pujan and a discourse by Pujya Sadhvi Shila Piji Maharaj. And Vinod Bhai and Sudha Ben will be conducting a beautiful Chopra Pujan event. We will also have live music by Rajeev Punatar. So that's going to be at 9:30 in the morning till 11:30 on Saturday, 14th of November. So we don't finish with just that one event. We continue on in the late evening with more celebrations of singing and dancing and beautiful storytelling, especially aimed at our families and our young children. And these all will be conducted in not only English, but also in Gujarati. And to really end it all with a piece de resistance will be in the evening, late night, will be a jap which starts at 11 p.m. and continues on to the new year until 1. And this is going to be a one-of-a-kind event that SCVP, Young Jains, and the Virayathan family will be really well known for virtually, and hopefully we can touch everybody worldwide with this amazing day. So please do make a note in your diary, and hopefully my diva has lit this up in your mind and in your calendar, and really look forward to having Diwali with you all. And please do let all your family and friends know about this event. And most of all, what I want to say is that we've got this amazing platform here with the virtual adult class. So do spread the word. There is so much learning to do. And if you have missed any of the Friday sessions, we are also on YouTube. So you can always, go back and learn and learn something you've missed. So do take this amazing opportunity. We also have towards the end, a survey, a poll happening. So do please fill out the poll so we know how we are conducting these lessons, these presentations on Friday. And thank you so much for joining us this evening. Really lovely to see you all. Have a fantastic weekend, and see you next Friday to listen to Rajeev Pai finish part 2 of the Sutra. Good night, Jai Jinendra and Michani Dukhan.